Inspire Instructor podcast, where the learning never stops. Welcome, you wonderful people, and thanks for listening to Inspire Instructor Training podcast. It's now only 11 days till the launch of our amazing new venture. Inspire Instructor Training will be bringing you live Zoom sessions, jam-packed online training courses, and a mentorship package which will be all you need in CPD and to become the best instructor you can be. Along with Decalion and Diana, I cannot wait to bring this awesome opportunity to all of you. And to kickstart, we'll be offering the first 50 members 50% off. So what have I got in store for you today? Well, we've got two top trainers from Knowledgablee Instructor Training, Mick, Knowle and Lee Jowett. They bring their knowledge, passion and humour to the podcast. We discuss, was the trainer aware of the surroundings and the pupils' actions? We also dig into the GDE Matrix and how you can implement that on your lessons. And as always, hang around till the end to hear both of their top tips. Okay, off we go and on to the show. So I'd like to welcome Mick, Knowle and Lee Jowett from Go Roadie's CPD Provider of the Year 2022 Knowledgeable Instructor Trainer. So, hi guys.
Hello, Phil. How are you doing?
You can pay me later for the plug.
You got the names the wrong way around.
I'm certain you'll get it in again later on during this podcast. If not, we definitely will.
Yeah, at least I got the name right. So was it you that got misnamed, or was it the other? Was it?
It was me. Yeah, was it the only other Lee in the industry apparently? So yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to get that like one name status with
no.
you being there, unfortunately.
No.
So guys, I normally kick off the podcast trying to like finding out your origin stories and how you got into the industry. But because there's two of you, that will just take way too long. So what I actually want to do is get into Knowledgeable Instructor's origin story. So like, how did you two like come together? How did this marriage happen, basically? And
marriage?
Yeah, didn't you know?
Yeah, Lee did it in secret.
I'm married once, and that's enough.
So how did you guys come together? How did Knowledgeable Instructor Trainer come together and come about?
I was bored one Sunday, picked the phone up and phoned a random number, and Lee answered it. No, no. In all honesty, what happened was it was September 2021, yeah, and B plus C had just been scrapped, which is a big part of my business, or it was one of my businesses, so that was folded overnight, more or less. I was still doing instructor training, and I'm still doing fleet work and learners, but I needed something to fill the void. I didn't want to take on more learners. I knew Lee. We were both trainers at Try Coaching, and I messaged Lee. I think we were also admin on one of the Facebook groups that I run at the time, so we knew each other. And I just messaged him and said I need to chat. Phoned him up, told him what my plans were, what my thoughts were, and it was like a proposal, because straight away he went yes. And then I think it was about 10 days later when we met at
How is your knee? How is your knee now?
Still got the friction burn on it from being held down. I think it's about 10 days later we met. This sounds a bit seedy. We met in some hotel in Leeds. and that's when we put the plans into motion and came up with our sort of plans and our goals for the next about 3-5 years, I think, sort of thing, 3 to 5 years. Long-term plans, short-term plans, medium, and we did that, and came up that, I think, more or less that day with a date of when we're going to launch. We didn't want to launch straight away because we wanted to sort of get things in motion, get things in place. So we gave ourselves about 6 months to do that, and then launched on the 1st of April 2022, and delivered our first workshop on the 10th of June that year, which just so happened to be both of our wedding anniversaries, not to the same person though. There's a marriage theme going on here actually already, isn't there? So yeah, that was it, mate.
Fair enough. I'm going to make you be nice here, Mick, maybe. So what made you choose Lee? Because there's plenty of trainers in the industry.
Random phone number.
It's about the nicest thing he's probably ever said to me, to be fair.
I think from when we first met at one of the tri-coaching events, we sort of hit it off. There was sort of 3 or 4 of us that used to that got on and still do get on really well. But Lee was the closest one. I don't know really. I think because the other 2 as well were admins on the group as well. But Lee was the first one that I brought on. So I just sort of thought, Lee would be the sort of the one. That sounds wrong, doesn't it? You know what I mean? Lee's the one.
Really is, yeah.
But yeah, we just yeah, we just we just hit it off, and we sort of we get on, we bat things off each other all the time. Yeah, and then we got married on the same day, different years, so that was it. That was a seal there. That was it.
Are you sure it wasn't to each other? No, I can relate to that. I've just recently started this process with Inspire Instructor Training, and I can relate to that sort of needing that rapport, and you have to get on with the people you work with, and you can see that the 2 of you have a similar sense of humor and stuff that works really well. So Lee, so obviously Mick came up with this, like, boom, we need to do this. What were you doing, Lee? Before that, did you have ideas like this? So when he came to you, was like, actually, I'm thinking the same sort of kind of vibe.
I was just like carrying Mick's books around and things like that at the time, and just getting him his dinner and sorts of things like that. And no, we both we were both training or trainers for tri-coaching. We spoke all the time anyway. We probably didn't speak that much less than we speak now. And it kind of made it kind of logical sense, in that I'd been trying for probably about 2 years to start something in terms of my own courses and development with particular person in my local area, because looking at it logically, I never thought of having a business partner, certainly not that's a Leeds fan, but
on the right side of the Pennines.
That was so I'd tried and discussed and considered and actually kind of sort of set something up, but it just never ever came to fruition, because I think, like, obviously Mick and a lot like me is that we plan things and we do them, and we put work into to get things in place. So it was good because it meant that things, we met and we agreed a date and we met, and then we put things down on paper, and then suddenly we had plans, and we had dates to work towards, and so that all made the process work where it hadn't sort of worked previously. So I think, long story short, yes, similar plans. I was thinking more locally, for whatever reason. I think probably wrongly, because you don't need to be. And particularly given our business model, which is to sort of go to places face to face, travel, etc. So yeah, it just works.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing there is Mick chose you and you chose someone else. But
Story of my life. That's why he gets the bad views in the hotels.
Yeah. To be fair with that, that goes back to probably before I'd met Mick, to be fair. And just it was, you know, someone local that I thought would be good because they had they've got quite a big presence in my local area. And I was looking at things locally and developing a presence locally rather than nationally. But when Mick contacted me and said that, I just thought it makes sense. Actually makes a lot more sense. Because, you know, even if we just focused on the north, it's a much more bigger sort of catchment area. But yeah, we're just focused on the whole country. So
of course it made sense. It came from my brain.
So, and just like obviously working as a partnership, and this is maybe a selfish question for me because I'm going into a similar sort of kind of thing. What do you guys see the benefits of being together rather than maybe you doing this separately on your own?
Great question. We can achieve more. We can support one another, push one another, make sure Lee's on time for things.
Not doing a good job of that, are you?
Yeah, you're not too bad today. 15 minutes late, that's not bad. But yeah, that's yeah, getting better. That's it really. I think that we just support each other and bat ideas off each other. You know, it's that thing of if you're on your own and you have an idea, you come up with that idea, and then in the back of your mind you get that that imposter syndrome kicks in. Can I really do that? I'm not sure that I can do that. Where we often send each other texts, and it's the one that Lee's laughing already because he knows what's coming. I've got an idea. And we think, oh shit, what are we doing now? So then the phone call comes in, and it's great, yeah, that's good, we can do that. I'll do it slightly different, like this, so we can pass ideas off on each other like that. So yeah, that's really good. But don't nick our catchphrase of I've got an idea.
I don't have ideas. It's fine.
It's always followed by an emoji as well, a LOL emoji, because we know what's coming next. More work.
So who's the pie in the sky, and who's the person that goes, no, we need to be like, brings it down to like, let's be realistic about this. So because I think both are good traits. Because you have to kind of have that. You have to have those pie in the sky ideas, and then you need someone who, I don't know, maybe can put it into how's that going to work, sort of kind of vibe.
I think we both do that, don't we?
Yeah, I think when it's my idea, it's Mick, and when it's Mick's idea, it's me, sort of thing.
Yeah.
There isn't a lot that we come up with where we go, yeah, no, that can't work. We kind of like, oh yeah, that's, oh yeah. So, and then we bat it off each other, and we tend to come up with something that's a little bit better than it was in the original idea, sort of thing. Yeah, there's the occasional thing. Like we've got quite a big idea in mind, but it might not come to fruition for about 12 months. We've got another one that probably won't be for 24 months. So
I was thinking what you meant then.
Yeah. So, but that helps as well, because sometimes you think, oh, I could do that. I could do it in like, oh, do it then, and then I'll put something to Mickey, like, yeah, but don't forget we've got this, and this to do, and it's going to take time to. Oh yeah, I have to just put that on the back burner a little bit then.
10-year plan.
Yeah,
I can see that happening. Like you have so many ideas, and you forget that you have to have time to implement these things, these things, because
the way my brain works, it's just And I said this the other day to you, didn't I? I said, you know what my brain's like? I'll come up with an idea and I've just got to say it there because I'll forget. And I've been doing some fleet work today and something came to me during the fleet work. So I asked some questions, did a bit of digging, and then phoned Lee up on the way back. And yeah, that's something else that might be happening. Some, another idea. Yeah, it's just like that. It's just random thoughts come into your head. Don't, and if you don't, the thing is, if you don't pursue them, if you don't chase them, you'll never do it. Whereas if you've got somebody that you can, and I've wrote a blog on this sort of for Kit Mag. If you've got an idea, don't ask somebody who's negative, because they'll just chin you off. No, don't do that. It'll never work. But ask somebody who you confide in, who's a positive person. Get rid of the negative people because they won't help you. But confide in a positive person, or just do it yourself. Find a way of doing it. And with with us, we just we come up with an idea, we tell you the one, and then we throw it around the room and come out with a, like Lee said, with a slightly different version of it that's hopefully better.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and I'm the same. I don't listen. If someone tells me I can't do something, that just makes me want to do it more.
Yeah.
But I don't think I'd ever listen to that person, because if it's a flat out you can't do it, I'm like, but why? Like, I need to know. I need to know why. I'm okay with listening to reason, but and changing the idea and stuff like that. But a flat out no is just sort of, that's someone not trying.
I remember when I left school, two things. I left school and I was joining the army. I'd already got through all the things and everything, and I was training with a rugby team, and this coach turned around to me. I was only training with him for a bit of fitness. It was rugby league, and I didn't play rugby league. And this coach of this men's team, and I'm 16-year-old at the time, trained with this men's team, turned around to me. He'd never been in the army. He turned around and said, "You'll never make it." Really? I went back and showed him a few years later. Just if people say you won't make that, you're not good enough. That's what's it? That's like
fuel on the fire.
Yeah, that's the word. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And I'll just go and do it. I've got to do it. You've got to push yourself for it.
I think you're right. You've got to kind of put yourself out there. I was reading a book recently, and they were talking about the most successful businesses are the ones that have failed the most, because they failed enough time to find the success. So on that note, guys, then what have your biggest failures been so far?
The one thing that stands out to me at the minute is that needs to go, and it's not gone yet, is the thing that we put in Kit Mag last month. It was always going to either work or not work, and it's not that the thing itself won't work, it's that the thing we put in Kit Mag hasn't worked. The thing itself will be fine, but we put something in Kit Mag to see if we could achieve something. I want to go too far into it, but today, yes, I would say from hope, expectation, and where we are, expectation way off, hope light years off. Where we actually are, majorly disappointing.
Yeah, and although and I'm not going to push you on the detail, but it's interesting though, because that I think is my point. The point is you tried it.
Yes.
And then you either go, do we keep trying this? Do we change it?
Yes.
Or do we go, this clearly isn't going to work. It wasn't what we thought it was. And we try something else.
Yes.
Yeah, we're keeping it.
The thing itself isn't it's the thing that we tried to do with the Kit Mag and the because we're looking at ways. The one thing was that at some point we need to look at ways to monetize Kit Mag. So it was an idea around that, but without directly monetizing the magazine. And all I'd say is at this point, majorly disappointing in my opinion.
We're only 10 days in.
Still.
So in fact, I lied. 13 days in. To check the date.
Majorly disappointing.
With 13 days in, but you know, it might kick in.
It won't
at
be
some
what
point.
I hoped it would
No,
be.
no.
But it was always a possibility. I wouldn't have said it was 100% certain that, but it was an idea, and it was something that we give a shot to, and it was definitely worth a shot. But if I was looking at one thing to pick on so far, and we'll have other things. There will be,
Oh yeah.
I've no doubt there'll be some things that we do that we look at and we, there's been a couple of other things, but they were done for various different reasons. Like we did an additional in-car day and added onto the workshop. And the one place we sold it was the furthest place away from like, yeah, the one place you probably wouldn't want to have sold a play. If we'd have looked at the dates and the venues, said pick one of them where you hope somebody doesn't buy one. It was the one place that somebody did.
Yeah, that was in fact that was Exeter, Phil.
Okay.
So we had to get down Exeter early so Lee could do this and I could sit in the hotel and do some work with a beer next to me.
So,
Yeah.
but that there was reasons for that though that were different as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's nothing that overly stands out as makes me think, well, that's failed. But that's not to say nothing ever will.
Yeah, the thing is, you've got to try these things, and failure is just the first rung on the ladder to success. You know, if you fail, then learn from it and come back and improve it and make it better. It's like failing your part one or your part two, or your part three. If you just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, you're going to keep failing. But if you look at what you've done, what the feedback was, go and get some training around that, you're going to improve if you take on that information. If you chin it off by, well, no, it was the examiner's fault I failed. Well, you're not going to pass the next time. But if you can look at your reasons for it not working and change it and make it better, and that's what we've done. This the thing that Lee mentioned about KitMag, it's the KitMag thing isn't working. It might work. We might make some changes to it. But the other side that we did is, but yeah, it's yeah, you don't get anywhere without trying and without failing. It's like what you said about Phil, that book. My business coach that I used to use, her business went bust, and the reason I went to her was because she's been there. She's seen it and done it, and reinvented the wheel and come out as a business coach. And if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have got to expert to where I've got it to, and then I wouldn't have probably got knowledgeable to where it is, because when me and Lee first met in that hotel and I said we need to write this down because when it's written down we're now accountable for it, that came from her. And that's why I'm sat in my office now. I've got 3 white screens here with goals and stuff wrote on it, and that's what I work to, because it's all written down, so now I'm accountable.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm just trying to think how, like, obviously listening to the instructors and maybe PDIs listening is you obviously they're all not all, a lot of them might be self-employed, and so from that perspective, like try things, try different ways of running your business, try different ways of interacting with your learners. Sorry. For those not watching on video, Lee's dog has just joined the podcast.
It's a headless dog, though. Where's his head gone?
He's either got a body or a head. When he turns his head round, he's got a head. There's his head, look. Then his body disappears.
But yeah, they or even just you could apply this to how you deliver your driving lessons.
Yeah.
Like try stuff, and then if it doesn't work, like try something else and see what works for you, what sticks for you. And I wonder if there's a lot of instructors out there that maybe get stuck in their ways and they're scared to try new stuff. They're scared with these like new ways within the industry, and I actually thought about this the other day. We call it the new ways in the industry, It's not new anymore.
Oh,
It's like there's a road. I nearly called it a new road where I live, and it's been there for like 10 years. And that's what we call it. We call it the new way in the industry, but it isn't new. It's been around for years now.
well, yeah, the new. I said it myself. The standards check's been in for 9 years. In fact, 10 years in April. Is it 10 years? Yeah, 10 years in April.
10 years in April, yeah.
Yeah, but we still call it the new standards check, the new way, and it's 10 years old.
Yeah,
yeah.
But yeah, I think that's just that's my advice to PDIs and ADIs out there. Like, if they come onto a course like yours or do some training with someone, and it not even have to be that, it's just like they have an idea, like, give it a go. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Tweak it, change it, try something completely different, but like, put yourself out there. It's probably
and we say that to them on the workshop. Well, Lee said it a couple of times to them. The things we give you, try them. Take it away, think about it, and try it if you want. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But they will work. They do work. Just got to apply it.
Yeah, but also apply it in their way, because everything we talk about as trainers.
Yeah, you've got to have that mindset.
Personality in there, isn't there?
Yeah, you've got to have that mindset to want to try it. Yeah, some people go on training, or you talk to some people and they don't want to change, and they won't change because they don't want that change. They don't like it. Other people will come on it, right, I want to change. What can I change? They've got a different mindset. So have that mindset of, I'm going to try it, and go away and try it. But don't just try it once. Try it a few times. Yeah. It's not like drinking a cup of coffee. Oh, I don't like the taste of that. I'm not drinking that again. Yeah. It's like drinking beer. I like that. That's all right. The more you have, the better it gets.
Yeah. We won't mix that in with the driving lesson, though.
No.
But you're absolutely right. I think people go away and try it once and it doesn't work. And of course it doesn't work because, one, you're probably not very good at it at the moment because you're trying it for the first time. So you need to do it enough times. You need to fail at it enough times to become good at it. But also your pupils aren't used to it. You've been sat telling them all these lessons, and you suddenly start asking them questions. Of course they're going to be shocked and give you I don't knows and stuff, like, who the hell's this person sat next to me? And so you need to do it enough times so they get used to it and start interacting with you. I want to move on, guys, to our competency section. So we talk about competency every episode until I run out of competencies or guests. So the competency we're going to talk about today is, was the trainer aware of the surroundings and the pupils' actions? Now, normally I throw this over to you guys, but before I do that, I actually want to read out the one sentence in the ADI 1 here. And actually, I find it fascinating that this section in the ADI 1 is the smallest section. It's the least bit, but probably the most important competency. And in the ADI 1, it says, this lies at the heart of the ADI's professional skill. That's like the first sentence in there. And so they're basically saying to you, this is that you can't do the job if you can't do this competency. Yet they haven't written very much about it because they're just saying it's a basic skill, I suppose. So, guys, what do you think about it?
Spot on. What you just said there is it's the starting point. It's where, if you're not doing that, if you're not aware of the surroundings and aware of that pupil's actions, then you're not going to be able to do your job. It is where it all starts. Yeah. We've got to be watching that pupil, but also aware of what's going on.
True. It sounds like quite a basic one. So, Lee, if you had a PDI or someone listening who's thinking, I'm struggling with that, because I think as experienced instructors, it seems like I almost can't not do this sort of thing. Like we probably all had it when we're sat in the car and not working, and you can't not be aware, you can't not watch the person driving. But that's not necessarily the case when you first start out. So what do you like? Have you got any techniques or games or anything like that you implement with your PDIs to help them with this, watching the pupil or watching the surroundings?
I think with training, to me, is that there needs to be a specific purpose, and the training needs to work towards that specific purpose. When the majority of PDIs that I see have come to me on the second or third attempt, often on the third attempt, and I'll see what they're doing, and often what they're not doing is observing the pupil. They're doing a good job of the surrounding areas, but they're not doing a good job of observing the pupil. And actually, the reason for that is that I didn't know, like, it's not that they don't know they have to, but they've never done any training around it. Because all the training has been around junctions, topics, and levels of instruction. And there's so many facets of observing the surroundings and the pupil's actions that if you do a really good job of it, you don't need full instruction necessarily. You don't need that prompt, you don't need that question, or you need that question and you didn't need the dual controls, etc, etc. What do I do with it? What it says on the tin. Watch me and tell me what I've not done. Watch me and tell me what I've done. Watch me and tell me all the good things that I've done. And that's important. That's important because we still, as an industry, are too rooted in fault focus. And observing the surroundings and the pupils' actions can actually help to elicit feedback from the pupil around what they've done well. It ensures that we know the pupil's in control of a situation, and we can all deal with something using our working memory so that it's just what we did in the moment, and then it's gone because we haven't reflected on it. We do a really good job of observing the surroundings and the pupil and see what they've done well. We can ensure they learn from what they've done well. Guess what's going to be important to them as a driver? The things that they do well, Guess what they're going to rely on when they come into difficult situations as a driver when they've passed the test? Ain't going to be the weaknesses. So we need to build up, we need to help them to learn, but in order to do that, we need to see what they've done. So nothing specific in terms of games, but certainly lots in terms of just specific focus of the training around that particular skill, just lots of it, because I tend to find that it's a massive area that's lacking. And like you said, it is, of the 17 competencies, at least in the mind of DVSA, and I don't personally disagree. I just think there should be maybe a bit more of a focus on human factors and etc. But that's not necessarily the competencies faults. It's more the standards and what's omitted from the standards. But it's certainly, in terms of them 17, at least the very starting point. If you do a good job of that, you can be quite good or very good at the other 16.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I almost agree. I'm not sure I'd say this is the most important, because I think the self-reflections and goal setting is probably more important, but I don't think you can do anything else if you can't do this. That's the key. It's like,
how can you reflect if you don't know what you've done or not done?
Yeah, it's the building block. And it's interesting you were saying about how you get PDIs come to you and they've not had this foundation because they've had that sort of kind of training around topics rather than the skills to become a driving instructor, which I've got a question for that in a second. But it's interesting because when I do my training, I this is one of the most important things that I teach when we first get in the car is being aware, which happens during the part 2 phase. Like when I'm doing part 2 training with them, that's what we're trying to get this as awareness about. And then it's about being able to watch me, partly because the first time most of my PDIs teach a pupil, it's in my car and I'm sat in the back, and I want them to be bloody aware and capable of stopping the car and keeping us all safe. And so, for me, that's the fundamental thing. I think we can teach them to teach, but we're on the road, so fundamentally they need to be able to keep them safe on the road, and this is fundamental in that. So just going back to my question about, you said about the topics and stuff, why do you think that's still happening in the industry?
I think because, and this is only my opinion, I don't know this for certain, but I almost feel like it's because a lot of training companies don't know what else to do. Like, but they need the knowledge that they need, and they do, absolutely, they do. People come to me on the third attempt, and they've got work to do, but all of the knowledge that they've got, the ability to instruct in different levels, it's all important, but they're lacking the things that go around the not around the edge, but the things that wrap it up, which are the skills that are required. I largely feel like what's missing is the skills, and maybe training companies, because when you look at the old qualification process and you look at the check test report and what was on there, and marry that up with what you see when someone comes to you from training providers, largely, if I'm honest, they're the things that they've done training around. They're the things that they can do. And it might seem like, as an instructor, obviously you need to be aware of your surroundings and the pupils' actions. But you got to also bear in mind that anything that we don't do in life, we need to learn to do. I was saying before to a PDI, he was wondering why it's so difficult to just have a conversation with a pupil, to break things down really well and make specific goals. But where else in life do we do that? Where else in life do we sit next to somebody, watching what's happening outside the car and paying close attention to what they're doing? And if we don't do it in life, then, well, that's something that you're going to need to learn to do. But these things I just find generally, and again, I can be wrong, but I see it that many times that I'd be surprised if I am. They just seem to be missing from training providers' syllabuses.
Yeah, it's a shame, because and I wonder if it's so you're saying you thinking it's top down sort of kind of thing. So the syllabus that they're offering is the issue, not the trainers on the ground, because they're just delivering what they're told to deliver.
Maybe a bit of both.
Yeah. For me, first of all, top down. I like that top down approach.
Yeah.
For me, just to go on to what Lee said about training providers, I trained with a national company 14 years ago. Okay. Their training is still the same now as it was then. They've just removed PSTs. I know that for a fact. Yeah. They're still training the same thing. Now, if you've got if you've got a training company and you've got a package, training notes, PowerPoint slides, all the rest of it that works, but then somebody comes along and changes something, are you going to be able to write a new training package and disseminate that down to all your trainers? Or are you just going to make slight amendments, like taking PSTs out, which is the easiest option? Yeah. If I had 20 trainers under me, right, and this isn't how I would do it, but this is the way I see it, that it's probably happened. For me to write this package, I'm going to need 6 months, let's say, to get this package up and running. Then I've got to pass it down to my trainers. That's probably 6 months of no training or limited training. You know what I mean? And I'm losing money. Well, I can't do that. I've now just got to get the package out. So I'm going to make bare minimum changes. And that's what I see has happened for some of the companies, some of the training providers, and some of the trainers. because they were trained with topics. The trainers then train with topics, and that's still happening now. New trainers coming in, trainers that have just people have just qualified, and they're doing it. So yeah, it's topics is not a good thing. But just to go back to the competence that we were talking about as well. I've got a couple of examples of it that I've seen, and we sit in the back of cars many times. And I mentioned Bradford syndrome. I mentioned this on some of our workshops. Bradford syndrome was it was a PDI on his final attempt for a national company. He contacted me asking if I could go to Bradford to do some training. It failed twice. One of the reports turned around and said that he was a windscreen observer. Straight away, as soon as I read that, and it said that in the report, as soon as I read that, I knew what it meant. The second one didn't say that, but it alluded to it. So I went down to Bradford. We had a chat, asked him what it meant, asked him what he thinks he needed to do. And then we went, I observed a lesson. And the funny thing was, during the lesson, there was a crash in front of us. Not a major crash, just a van reversed into a car. That was it. And the lesson finished. And the first thing I said to the PDI was, what's the reason that you're still looking out of the windscreen? You're not observing the pupil, even though you've been told twice already that that's the reason you're failing. You've missed a lot of faults because you're not watching what they're doing. And he turned around to me and went, Mick, this is Bradford, not York. There's crashes here. I kid you not. I kid you not. I went, oh yeah, yes, I remember that. I've never seen one of them before. But his thought was that he needed to look out the window to see the windscreen to see what was happening. No, you've got to watch that pupil to see how they're dealing with it. Another one was a PDI trained by a national company. 14 laps of a little short repeatable loop, which I encourage to do short repeatable loops, but pull in and discuss, 14 laps. And all he kept saying all the way around was, you miss your mirrors, miss your mirrors, miss your mirrors, miss your mirrors. Like Lee was saying, fault focused. I was sat in the back watching the learner checking his mirrors. He wasn't paying attention to the learner. He was, but not at the right time. Yeah. So I asked him, why do you think he's not checking his mirrors? Because he's not. Okay. I asked the driver, the learner, I am. How does that make you feel? Getting pissed off. Okay. All right. Do you want to know what's happening? Yeah. He's checking his mirrors. You're not watching him. So he spoke about just adjusting yourself in the seat. He told me that hadn't been mentioned before. And I see that quite a lot where, we've had, I came into this industry, God, what am I now? 40 something. Can't remember now, 42.
40 odd years ago you came into
Yeah, so I thought he was going with that. I was like, you're looking good for it, Mick.
I think I was 41, 42, somewhere around about there when I came into this industry. 41, yeah. Right. So I've had, since I passed my test, I've had, oh God, I can't even get 27 years of sitting in the driver's seat or in the passenger seat looking out the front windscreen. I've now got to train myself not to just look there, but to maybe sit at an angle. Whereas what I see when I'm sat in the back of the car is a passenger. I see a passenger sat in that seat looking out the front windscreen. And every now and again they do that and they turn their head. Or they get in with all intentions of watching them and they do this. And I've been sat there for about 2 seconds now and I can feel it on my neck. I'm not going to sit like that for an hour or 2 hours and do this. But I can do that and just turn in my seat slightly. And then I've opened that vision up to both places. But you sit in the back and you'll see them and they just sat straight forward. So yeah, similar to you, Phil, I work on this quite a lot right at the start. And we use our training is fully integrated, so we're training part 2 and part 3 at the same time. So the part 2 element, which I do first, the sort of first hour in it is them breaking down what they're doing. But then when we swap roles, like Lee said, they're then watching me doing these elements. Yeah. And they're watching me. And I'm not interested in them looking out of the windscreen because they can do that anyway. It's like what Lee said about, you've got to train them to do what they're not very good at. And that's watching me.
I think one thing I do with that actually is in that vein, I actually tell them they're not allowed to look out the front windscreen. So when we first start, like
I paint the windscreen black.
Road. Yeah. You're not allowed to look. Yeah. You're not allowed to look.
Not really, no.
You're not allowed to look left and right. You only allowed to watch me and what I'm doing. And I don't necessarily throw any faults at that point. I just like watch me do it well and watch me check my mirrors and stuff. And then we start throwing in the timing if then you're allowed to start looking back at the road. And I think it's definitely I don't get why, because I do get why some of the stuff doesn't happen, like the topic based stuff and things like that, because of the syllabus and stuff. But I don't get why this isn't at the start of their syllabus. It's like it's before you get into teaching. I don't get why that's not drilled in.
The thing with the topics as well, just to go back to what you mentioned there, ADI 21T. Yeah. We've had the standards check for so that's my dog's barking. We've had the standards check for 10 years. The ADI 21T is not changed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's still topic based. That might be why.
Yeah. You might have a new trainer coming in who maybe isn't with a large company, and they look at this form they've got to fill out and go, oh, well, okay, this is clearly what I've got to teach them.
Yeah. But then they're getting tested on
on 17 competences.
Yeah.
Why not change the 21T? Come on, DVSA, change it.
Well, it's said for years they're going to.
Yeah.
I have a final question before we move on, which might split the room because it splits the industry, and it's linked to this competency. So, eye mirror or no eye mirror?
I've used both in the past. I don't use one now.
Interesting. Okay, we'll dig into that more. Lee, eye mirror or no eye mirror?
Personally, or in my opinion, for the industry.
Oh, that's a good question. Let's go for do you use it, and then you're
never used one.
Okay.
Why? I don't know. I've never used one. I think the benefit of never using one is you become better at observing the pupil, because there's more to watching them than just the eyes. For the industry, I don't know, because I think it's that works for me. I think if an eye mirror works for someone, and it's not an issue for them, then I, not that I should have an issue, but I haven't got an issue. If it works for someone, then I'm just, I don't think you can be a coach in mind if you're not open to somebody using something that works for them. It doesn't bother me, but I've never used one and that's kind of worked for me.
This is far too diplomatic. It never goes like this on Facebook.
And I'm sorry, I am quite diplomatic.
I first started off, in fact, my trainer had one. Okay. And he told me the benefits of it. I didn't have one to start with, and then I got one, but I found I was never using it. Or if I was, it was, I've got an eye mirror. Oh yeah, better use that. Yeah, because I trained myself to watch. Now, like Lee said, there's more to watching the eyes. A hell of a lot more to watching the eyes. But in that eye mirror, can you actually see the eyes all the time? I couldn't. That's probably why I wasn't using it.
You need to move it.
Yeah. But also, if you are using it, it's good to go back at times to not using it. Yeah, to going back to basics. I one of the things that from my past that I did, and people are going to slate me for this, I'm an ex-football referee. So I haven't had my jaw broken, ended up in a Turkish hospital though. So but
Yet.
yet, yeah. But when we were running the line on and it's semi-pro football we're talking about, and reserve team football, football league reserve team and stuff like that. At that level, you've got to be on the ball, and you train yourself to split your vision. Yeah, so you're watching the ball and watching the second last defender. The guys that are mic'd up do it differently. So the opposite assistant is telling them ball's been kicked now. So you don't even watch the ball. It's telling you when the ball's been kicked, so you're watching it. But we haven't got the mic, so we're watching and splitting our vision. And if you think about that, that's what we're doing in the car. Yeah. So I was lucky that I was already doing that on a Tuesday night, a Wednesday night, a Saturday. And so I could bring that into it. That's my transferable skill. And I found that quite easy to do. So when I got that eye mirror, it was, yeah, it's there, but I've wasted some money on it. But, for those that have got them, and when I said, go back to basics, take it down, go back to basics. And I said this to somebody the other week, and they messaged me and said, I've done it. I've taken my eye mirror down. It's, God, so much better. Yeah. And then again, I'm going to relate this back to the football. So I used to have what's called buzzer flags. So as a referee, instead of my assistant just sticking the flag up and waving it, it buzzed me. So I didn't even need to look at him. Buzz, oh, yeah, offside, whatever. But every now and again, when I was on a game a bit lower level that I wasn't getting assessed on, my buzzer flags wouldn't come out. We're on normal flags today, lads. Just in case my buzzer flags went down, on a game, then I was still in tune with looking across. Yeah. So every now and again, every 5-6 games, the normal flags would come out, and that's me going back to basics. Just sort of resetting myself. And that's the same with the eye mirror. Just take it down every now and again. Take it down, learn to watch them, and then put it back up again.
It's interesting that, and actually, I do use an eye mirror.
I thought you were going to say you use buzzer flags there.
I did use buzzer flags as well, actually, when I refereed.
Did you use me ref?
Yeah, I used to. Yeah.
Did you? Good.
Yeah. I love my little buzzer flags. But and actually, when you were saying about that transfer, like scanning on the line, I was relating to that, and I'd never ever, because I've always been quite good at like scanning the road and scanning the people, and never had an issue with that when I trained. And I never thought maybe that's why, because I was a referee when I trained to be a driving instructor. So I never thought about the fact that skill transferred. And it's interesting, actually. I might go and try this, take it, because I've always used an eye mirror. I love my eye mirror, and I might go and take it down and see what happens. Yeah. Oh, I suppose I've done mock tests without it. So I do mock tests in other people's cars, and it doesn't affect me. So I suppose from that, but I wonder if I've got that foundation of looking anyway, and that's my sort of kind of take on it. And I 100% agree with you guys. If it doesn't work for you, or it doesn't add anything to your training, then don't worry. You don't feel you need to get it. And if it's taking away from your training as well, absolutely take it down if you're not also looking at the pupil. For me, it shouldn't necessarily be that binary, you use it or you don't use it. I see it as a bonus tool, as in I watch the pupil, and this is a bonus tool. And it's not actually to watch their eyes, a little bit, but I don't overly use it for mirror checks. I don't use it for mirror checks. I think you see that better looking at the pupil. I use it for, it's a lot easier in an eye mirror, I think, to spot a pupil looking at the floor and looking like when they're turning a corner, because you see their eyes drop more than you do if you turn sideways. You can do it looking sideways, but I think it is easier to be able to still watch the road because they're turning the corner. You don't want them to hit the curb and see those eyes drop at the same time. So I use it for that. But the main thing I use it for is their facial expressions, because you get that like almost face on look, and seeing that you see their emotions in their face. That one, yeah. That's the reel for the that's the screen frame for the YouTube one. But so I think that helps because it gives me that opportunity to go, oh, something happened then in their mind, and I can then ask that question of like, what were you thinking there? I actually generally ask the question of like, what was that face about? And then you get a conversation. And I do think you miss that a little bit with the side on like profile of a person. You don't get those emotions as much. That's my sort of kind of sell for the because you
Yeah.
I feel like we have to balance the argument out.
I know where you're coming from. I get that, but again, going back to my past, not refereeing the other past, facial expressions was a big part of one of the jobs that I did. We did some training on facial expressions, so my facial expression recognition from the side is okay, is good. I can see certain things from the side.
Body language as well, isn't it? Though as well.
Yes,
like,
yeah.
Stuff. You can tell.
We did all that. It's body language. You know, when you can't speak the language, you need everything to help you. So we were doing body language training and facial expressions and that sort of stuff. And got an interpreter asking questions. And when the terp is asking questions, the person is asking questions, so he's looking at the terp and not at me. But I've got a side on profile sometimes, so I need to know, what his facial expressions are or his body language, and so that's another transferable skill that I've brought in to it, which is and yeah, you get a lot from it, a hell of a lot from body language and facial expressions, and you can ask them questions and what was that look for? What was, you know what I mean?
Yeah, talk to me about that face.
Yeah. Tell me more. Just do that face again.
Yeah. So moving on then, guys. So normally we move on to talk about the national standards for the driving rider trainers. And not that you guys couldn't have talked about the final unit. I'm sure you would have done a wonderful job. But I hear you guys quite regularly talking about the GDE Matrix.
What's that?
That's normally the response you get when you talk about it. So actually, yeah, that is my first question, Mick. What is it?
Oh, I am absolutely rubbish with dates and years of when it came out. 2000.
I've heard
Lee's good at the dates. I've got too many dates going in my head.
What, the one produced by Hataka et al. In 2002 from the Gadget Report in 1999.
You see,
derived from internal models of the internal models of driving behavior.
He's got it wrote down in front of him.
Produced in 1980 and updated in 1996. Is that
literally half the listeners have all turned off now?
You see, when I saw your message today, when we were talking about that, I thought he's going to come out with that, because dates to me, there's I know the year I'm born, I know the year I joined the army, I know the year I got out, I know this year, and that's about it.
What about the year you married Lee?
I know what year I got
can't
married.
remember.
I know what year my lad was born. My daughter was 22 in January, so she'll be 2002. I had to work that out, you see. I had to talk quietly in case she's listening.
Yeah, so what is it, guys?
What is the Goals for Driver Education Matrix? It's a result of 30 years of research. It's the result of a theory going back 43, nearly 44 years. It was proposed in the Gadget Report, and that was 1999. And what it basically is a framework, a comprehensive framework of 4, typically, although there are 5 levels that you can find, but 4 that are kind of accredited, peer-reviewed and accepted. 5th is just really more of an extension of level 4, and 3 columns. So you've got the lower levels that the driving test assesses, level 1 being vehicle control, and you've got 3 columns: knowledge and skill, risk increasing factors, and evaluation. You've got level 2, which is navigating through traffic, mastery of road conditions. And then you've got the 3rd level, which is all about context of journeys, and the same things: context of journey, knowledge and skills, risk increasing factors, self-evaluation. And then you've got level 4, which is all about the driver, the person, goals for life, skills for living. So knowledge and skill around their goals for life, and have they got the skills to stay alive, risk increasing factors to them, and again, evaluation of those things. And what it was suggested is that all of these elements were necessary in order to create safer drivers. We must educate every single one of those 12 elements to produce safer drivers. And what we know is that the driving test focuses on 4, which are the lower 2 levels and the first 2 columns, with the evaluation coming from an examiner. And what we know is that instructor-led approaches focus on the same 4, and level 3 and level 4. What we know about them, that's where the risk increasing factors and the key contributory factors in collisions tend to lie. So that's a brief overview of it.
I'm okay with brief overview. I'm not expecting an hour's course on
I just said that word for word as well, without the dates.
I'm intrigued by this idea that you've got that like the bottom 4 left in the corner is what we teach. And I was interested by you said an instructor-led approach sort of leads towards that. I'd almost think even a client-centered led approach could lead to that if the instructor doesn't know the other stuff, because you can be client-centered and deliver those 4 things, but if you don't know it as an instructor, those extra boxes, you're not, even in a client-centered approach, you're not going to actually have those conversations because you don't know those conversations yourself, if that makes sense.
I'm going to argue that, I'm going to argue that you're probably going to address, at least in some part, 6 elements rather than 4.
Yeah.
Because you're going to, with a client-centered approach, you're going to encourage some form of evaluation, whether that's self-evaluation or just evaluation of the task. And that's going to create a safer driver, even if they're just typically used to evaluating a piece of driving, how they've dealt with something, what they did well, and what they'd need to do differently, and how they'd improve. It will create a safer driver. But you're right that that could be considered client-centered, and would be, I would argue, that is client-centered, but it still doesn't address context of journeys and the individual themselves. It doesn't. So you're absolutely spot on. The disappointing thing for me is DVSA hold us back as an industry and hold us back as trainers from actually doing as much as we possibly could. And we do as much as we can, but we have to factor in that we have to prepare somebody to deliver to the audience that they're delivering to. And the audience that they're delivering to has, for some bizarre reason, if you look at a piece of research called RU, and the final report was published in 2015, the standards were published in 2011. So RU was published after. But you've got 2 options. You either believe that Seeker, who performed all this research that was published in 2015, looked at the DVSA's standards and thought, oh, they're really good, we'll copy them. Or you actually think, well, that's not going to happen. So DVSA looked at this research before it was published and cherry-picked what they wanted. Unit 6.3.3 of the national standards to coach. If you look at that, I've looked at that and I've always thought, that's very basic. And then if you look at it's section 5 of Seeker, where you can find all of this. Their unit around coaching includes human factors that cause collisions, developing drivers and education around, but you can also find within it, almost word for word, the elements of 6.3.3 of the national standards. So DVSA looked at that and thought it was a good idea to leave out things like attitude and approach, people's attitudes towards things, people's opinions, misgivings, and social groups and social norms, all of the things that we know impact on people's behavior. DVSA looked at that and, in my opinion, probably thought, we don't understand that. Yes. And so we don't understand it. So we can't assess around that. And what do you see on a part 3 report or a standards check report? How often do you see anything that addresses level 4 of the GDE matrix? But then you've got level 3, which is the context of the journey. How many driving instructors' pupils get nervous in the context of that journey when they're sat trying to perform for their instructor on their standards check or part 3? How many times does that pupil go to pieces? And why do I never see that mentioned in the comments section? The pupil was nervous, extremely nervous and anxious, and you didn't help them to understand how those feelings and emotions impacted on that drive at the time. Because all you see is level 1 and level 2. That's all you see is fault. Pupil missed repeatedly, mirrors not addressed. Not the pupil was nervous, leading them to behave in a particular way, and you didn't help them to understand how that impacted on the driving and how that can impact in the cause of collisions, which, by the way, is Unit 1 of DVSA's syllabus, almost word for word. So it's in the syllabus, they omitted it from the standards, and the examiners don't seem to want to assess it.
So I think actually what you're getting at there is kind of why I asked the question about the instructor-led and client-centered led, because I think that is the issue, that you could do you could even have good training to a certain extent, and you could get an A on your standards check and not at all mention the 2 higher levels of the GDE matrix. And I think that's the issue. That's criminal.
And I'm going to actually argue that, in my opinion, and I'm open to DVSA showing me statistics showing me that I'm wrong, that the vast majority of instructors in this country that have got a grade A have attained a grade A without addressing any of the 2 higher levels of the GDE matrix. 100% certain.
And I can picture that lesson in my head. And the reason they've got the A is because they've been hot on MSPSL and
limit points
and stuff. It's interesting. I went on Terry's podcast, and the 6 for 60 podcast that he does, and you had 60 seconds to answer a question. One of the questions was, what would you add to the standards check? And my question was, did the instructor, I can't remember the exact wording, but basically, did the instructor use elements 3 and 4 of the GDE matrix in the lesson if appropriate? Because it's not always appropriate. Like, you don't necessarily want it.
Yes, I know what you're saying.
And that would change the industry adding that to the standards.
I loved that question that you put in. I listened to that. There was a few suggestions put in that I liked, but that I was like, I really like that. It was a really good suggestion. There needs to be more human factors put into it. I like all of the 17 competencies, but that doesn't mean that it addresses everything. It doesn't.
That one thing on a standard check, because I think the way the industry works, and maybe it shouldn't be, but we definitely shouldn't be, but we are test focused. We're driven by tests. Like, we're driving instructors across the country.
Human beings are
sat navs before sat nav came on the test. How many of them taught bay parking if their test center didn't do bay parking until they put them in all car parks. We are test driven as an industry. And so if they did put that on the standards check, every instructor would be going, oh my God, I need to know about this because I'm going to get screwed over on my standards check.
And that's the thing we alluded to at the beginning. And when you said that we talk about the GDE, a lot of PDIs, a lot of ADIs don't know about the GDE. They've never heard of it. A lot of trainers don't mention it. And if we're not mentioning it, then it's not going to get mentioned on standard checks and part 3s. If it does get mentioned on standard checks and part 3s, then the DVSA might then start looking at it. But we've got to start doing it. On my audit inspection, I role played 2 pupils that were nervous. One was nervous. In fact, no, they were both nervous about different things. And my PDI spoke to me about it and discussed it, and we came up with the reason why I was nervous and what I could do about it, etc., etc. And that was on an audit inspection. So you can do it, but people don't understand it and they don't know it. And it's the same with the standards, really. A lot of people don't know the standards. That the amount of people that we speak to, every time and we're in Manchester on Friday. I'm not plugging because this is going. When's this going out? When?
Next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday. Yeah, we're in Manchester this Friday, so that's too late. But in January, we're in Truro, Plymouth, and Glastonbury.
Truro, Plymouth, and Glastonbury. That sounds like some sort of musical tour that's ending at Glastonbury, headlining on the main stage.
Yeah, come and see us headlining. But we always ask if anyone's heard of it, the GDE. We also ask if anyone's heard of the ADI1 and national standards. And the hands that go up are limited, aren't they, Lee?
Yeah, it's typically 90% don't know of so and actually a lot of a higher percentage of those that have a PDIs.
Yeah.
So that's not a bad thing at all.
No, that's I only know of one ADI examiner that's mentioned the GDE, the higher levels of the GDE, in a part 3 debrief. I was sat in the back of the car, and he actually mentioned it. And he turned around to me and he said, "Mick, have you got anything to add?" I went, "Yeah, I have." Well done for mentioning the higher levels of the GDE. He, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, that's the first time I've heard an examiner mention it." And he went, "Oh, no, I know it. I know and he's an ex-instructor. And then he went Cardington and trained ADI examiners, etc., etc. So he's
beat it out of him.
Yeah, and he actually turned around and said, when I've trained ADI examiners, I talk about the GDE to them, and I discuss it with them. So if he's doing it, are the others doing it? Or is it sort of lip service has been paid to it? Oh, the GDE, the GDE, I don't understand that, because it's a black and white box. And that, when the first time I came across it, and I've spoke to people before about this, when it first came out, sort of thing, it was black and white text. And when I look at something like that, I go, oh, boring.
Yeah, my eyes go jubbly when I see that.
Yeah, totally. But you add colour to that, different colours, and it brings it out.
Even images would be lovely, actually. You could do it with images.
We've done images, haven't we, Lee, on it? On one of our presentations, we put
we have here, actually. Yeah.
But you add a bit of colour to it, and you can see it then. And we've done that, and others have done that, and it makes it stand out, and I can read it better then. So and therefore others will be able to read it as well. But it's not something that is common, and it's the same as the standards. A funny thing with the standards, I mentioned off air about our local association. Well, the last meeting I ran for was the AGM, and I actually had our local ADI examiner down, the area manager, And the national manager was there at the time as well, who was in the area. So the area manager dragged him in. So there's 4 of us sat at the table answering these questions. And the national manager asked everybody in the room, 40 people in that room, who's read or seen or heard of the national standards. 4 people put their hands up out of 40. In that room, there was a audit registered trainer from a national company who turned around and who didn't put their hand up, who turned around and said, they don't need to know that. They just need to listen to what we say and they'll pass. Unreal. Yeah. So no, they do need that. They do need to know what the standards say. They do need to know what the ADI 1 says. They do need to understand the GDE Matrix. Not listen to and say what we say. That's parrot fashion. They're not going to learn from that. You've got to use these elements and these publications that are out there to help you. Yeah.
So, okay, I think we're depressing the entire
we can soon brighten that up, mate.
let's move on to my utopia world where it is on the standards check, and actually, to be fair, I think most people listening to a podcast like this probably either want to know about it if they didn't, or already do because they're doing CPD. Generally, someone who listens to an instructor podcast probably regularly does CPD. So let's say they want to know, or they don't know, or they don't know how to implement it. What would you say to those instructors about, like, how do we go into it? How do we go and put it in the car? It's all good and well knowing this little set of boxes. How do they implement it in the car?
So we give a kind of a model, a guideline of implementing it from lesson 1, moving off and stopping and going forwards with it. And it isn't really a massive shift on what you do. It's just including into the learning and the conversations, the elements that we typically miss. We talk about learning domains, psychomotor, cognitive, and affective, and typically driving instructors and level 1 is just, it's all around knowledge and skill. So the skill and developing the skill and the knowledge required to develop the skill. But it misses the elements that that motivate behavior. What motivates people's behavior is the thought processes, their opinions, their attitudes, and their emotions. So we give a simple guideline, which goes along the lines of lesson 1. You still do moving off and stopping with the pupil. Only once they've had a go, of course, you ask them how it went, and that's your psychomotor learning domain. And maybe it went really well. And so you ask them what they did well, but then you ask them what the thought processes were. So now you're going into the cognitive learning domain, you're going into the person, and you're asking them what they focused on. Maybe their answers are that I was really thinking about that clutch and holding it at the middle because you'd said that that's what I needed to do, and I didn't know I needed to do that. So I really focused on that. And then you link that. So you were thinking about that, you were focusing on that, and how did it go? Yeah, it went really well, actually, nice and smooth. How are you feeling? Oh, I thought I'd be really nervous. I thought I'd get really nervous, but once I got going, I really enjoyed it, actually. It was good. I liked it. Yeah, and you liked it, you enjoyed it, and it went well. Yeah. And they do that 3 or 4 times and same questions. And maybe on one of the attempts doesn't go so well. Same question. So how did that one go? Psychomotor. Yeah, not very well. When you say not very well, what do you mean? Well, I stalled it. Okay. And can you tell me what you were thinking about at the time as you were about to set off? Yeah, I saw that car behind me reversing off the driveway. I think I was thinking too much about that. Okay, what were you focusing on? Focusing on them. Okay. And because you weren't focusing on the clutch, it didn't go so well this time. So now they're starting to learn about focus and how much focus is required when they're driving, where the thought processes need to be. Had negative thoughts, it didn't go so well. How did you feel? Oh, when I saw that car, I got really nervous, panicked. And what happened next? I rushed it. How did that go? Stalled it. You take that lesson 5, maybe you're coming into traffic light junctions for the first time. Check the mirror, they notice a car behind them pretty close. You can see their eyes on the mirror, they go into the junction. The lights change, they go to set off, they rush it, they stall. You get them out the junction, you pull up. What were you thinking about as you approached the junction? I'd noticed that driver behind me, it looked like he was really angry with me. He looked like he hated me. Okay. When you got into the junction, what were you focusing on? I was focusing on him. How did you feel? Got really nervous. What happened next? I panicked again. And then what? I rushed it and stalled. And then push that forward 10 lessons and they'll start to be coming into a junction telling you. Now, this is level 4 of the GDE. This is how I'm feeling, how I react when I feel a particular way. So when I get nervous and I start to panic, I start to rush. That's what I do. That's who I am as a person. And then this is all brought about by level 3, the context of this particular journey, i.e. this driver that's behind me and how that's impacting on me as a driver. And how that then impacts on level 2, which is what I'm doing in traffic and how I'm controlling the vehicle, which is level 1 in that traffic. And that's what we call, I don't think we've mentioned it before though, a top-down approach.
No, but Phil mentioned it, didn't he?
Oh, yeah, we never mention it on the workshops either, do we?
Top-down approach.
And that's what we call a top-down approach, because whilst you still the physical elements of the lesson a level 1, you're still taking it from what impacted on what you did, level 4, what changed in the context of that journey, the car reversing off the drive, what impact did that have on you as the person, and what happened next. And if you take that through far enough, people just start to figure things out for themselves.
And it then becomes a long-term fix as well, rather than a short-term fix of you stalled the car because you brought your clutch up too quick. Bring it up slower. Short-term, it'll keep happening, keep happening, keep happening. Because they don't realise it. They don't realise the real reason.
Yeah. It's also like a global fix as well, in that it fixes that issue across several places.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cause and effect. You know, if you fix the effects, then it'll work at that time. But if you deal with the cause, that will affect, it's the cause of everything. That emotional response and that panic is the cause of many, many different issues in many situations, as opposed to just fixing a junction. So that's one of the things we look at with it.
And we have other things with it that we cover on the GD as well. Things like, in fact, there's some videos and there'll be some more videos on our subscription site as well that cover the GDE Matrix in more detail as well. So people can get it from there, as well as coming as soon as in person.
So while you're mentioning that, as we're gonna get it,
that wasn't a plug, by the way.
It's fine. I'm about to get to that point anyway.
Are you running a bath, Mick?
Am I what? Oh, I wonder what you're on about then. Am I running? No, I have showers, mate.
Plugs
Yorkshire, not in Manchester. I don't have outside baths anymore. Not like you.
I always ask my guests to leave everyone with a top tip for ADIs and PDIs. And I tend to never warn you, hence why you've both given me that face. But before you do give us that top tip, do you want to tell everyone where they can find you, what you've got coming up?
Yeah. So our website is really simple: adikit.co.uk. If you go to the website, on there is everything that we do, including the shop where you can buy stuff. So we've got various in-person courses, in-car courses, one-to-one training in-car, loads of different online workshops, and there'll be more going up in the next few days once we come up with some dates for the new year for online stuff. Ebooks, And then there's our video subscription. So there's a tab on there where you can go to that, and that'll link you into where you can sign up for the video subscription. And there's videos being put up there all the time. I've got one that's going out tonight at some point, I think it is. And we'll be adding more and more on, and that's doing really well at the moment. And then you can also find us on Facebook as well. We're on Facebook now and again. We've got a few different pages and groups, and we admin a few groups. And yeah, we spend about 5 minutes a night on Facebook.
I've seen you post on there occasionally.
Yeah.
If anything, you could post more.
Okay.
So yeah, who wants to go first? Maybe we'll go for Lee first because he had time to think about his top tip while you were telling everyone where to find us. So what's your top tip, Lee?
My top tip is remember that you are teaching human beings, not robots. We're teaching human beings to drive. What that means is that they will bring with them a lifetime of experience, of opinion. They've been seeing things from the age of 6, or they've been seeing things from the age of whatever, but they've been forming pictures in the brain from about the age of 6 and forming opinions from about the age of 12. So by the time they get to us, it's important that we recognize that they're not an empty vessel, that they come to us with their own opinions, and we will not be seen as some sort of ambassador for driving in their minds. We're there to do a particular job. So yeah, just bear in mind that we're dealing with human beings. Human beings have limitations. Human beings aren't designed to drive vehicles. And our role really is to help them to understand what they are to driving and what driving is to them. They're also, not only are they a human being in the car, but they're exactly the same person outside of the car. So if they're having issues being a person driving a car, they will have had those exact same issues in the car, outside of the car in life. And if you get them to think about situations where they have coped with themselves when they felt the same way outside of the car, there's a very good chance that they've had to deal with it, because they have to deal with themselves every single day of the life. So take them outside of the vehicle, ask them to consider what they do in life when they feel a particular way. I had a pupil who tried to leg it out of a junction, not physically, but in the car, because when she panics, she wants to run away. And what she didn't do, because she tried to do that in a car and I had to stop her from crashing, what she didn't do was run out of the school assembly when she had to read a poem out, but she felt exactly the same way. And she didn't, because she would have looked really stupid in front of everyone, and then she would have had to face everyone afterwards. And she hadn't considered the consequences of what she was about to do in the car, but she coped with herself. She deals with herself in life. And so when they have that, that's a light bulb moment. When they think that through in the mind and they go, suddenly they realize, actually, I can deal with this. I just haven't chosen to. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic tip for everyone. Yeah, no, I love that. Mick, follow that.
So just something to add, first of all, to add on to that, getting out the car bit. We find a lot of PDIs struggle with that conversation, especially when you're role playing. Okay. And I just said to one of mine the other week about, get out this car. Just imagine you're out the car. What would you say to me then? And bang, it just came. Yeah, so take him out that car, get out that context. But my tip would be, it took me ages to think, because I could listen to Lee then. For PDIs and ADIs doing the standards check, okay, concentrate on the learner. Don't concentrate on what you want to do. Concentrate on the learner and what that person needs. Don't concentrate on the person sat in the back. Yeah. Concentrate on the person that's driving the car and what they actually need. Okay. It's not a tick box exercise. If you're concentrating on what you need to do, or you concentrate on that person in the back, then you're making it into a tick box exercise that everyone says it is, and it's not. Concentrate on that learner and deal with what they need at that time. And if it needs changing, change it. Adapt it. Be ready to change. And if you are struggling, get some training. Don't leave it until a week before your third attempt. Get some training. If you've had training and you've failed, get some more training, different training from somebody else or different style. Yeah. Get somebody to sit in. The amount of PDIs that we see that have never had a lesson observed, it's unreal. Get somebody to come and sit in and observe your lesson, give you some training. It's going to cost you, but it'll cost you even more if you fail.
Yeah, so, I that bit at the end there, I find fascinating the amount of people that go to a part 3 and the first person that's watched one of their lessons is the examiner. We actually had somebody who was, and this just blew my mind, that was worse than that. So this person was going for their part 3 and they'd never taught a real pupil. They'd only done role play, and so their first time teaching a real pupil is going to be their part 3.
But that's what we used to do, though.
Well, we used to do a role play lesson, test, though, didn't we?
Yeah.
And then go off and do real.
Yeah. I did a part. I forgot about this. I did my first part 3. First, I had 2. I did my first part 3 straight after my 40 hours. I was unsuccessful because this is, people that listen to this might not realize, but the old style, when it was role play, it was split into 2 parts. So the first part was one PST, and then you'd have the other bit after. And I finished the first bit and I thought, I've messed that up. So I switched off. I hadn't messed it up. I passed. Because I switched off, I messed the second one up. So then I thought, right, I'm going to go onto my trainee license then. So I went on the trainee license and then did that. But yeah, the first time, you've got to have somebody, you've got to have a learner, be teaching, and you've got to have somebody sat in the back and observing lessons. You've got to do it.
So I think actually that I would link that to your tip in if you are only doing role play sessions, go find some training that doesn't involve it, or ask your trainer, because they might be willing to change, and then if not, go find someone who will sit in the back and observe lessons and support you in those lessons. Not just watch you and tell you you're crap.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it's going to cost you to do that, and a lot of people think that. And I put a post up today about it where people think that, I'll get that, but then when they find the price, no, I don't want that. Well, it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you to get somebody sat in the back of the car, especially if you're traveling, especially like the likes of us two. Yeah, got years of experience of training. We want to do that. So but there's loads. I get my PDIs. So I put me in touch with a couple of my ADIs. And they will go off and they will observe my ADIs giving lessons, and then one of my ADIs will turn around and say, okay, you're in the front, you're taking them home, and they'll like what you do, when you're sat in the back in your car, the ADI will sit in the back and let the PDI instruct them back to their house or wherever they're finishing. And it just gives them that sense of realization, really, doesn't it, of what they're gonna come across.
Right, I think we'll wrap it up there before we moan about the industry anymore.
We haven't started yet moaning, have we?
So seriously, guys, thank you for coming on. Thank you for spending your time and sharing your wisdom with us. It's been fantastic. I found it interesting, so I assume people listening will.
Let's hope so.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Phil.
Cheers, Phil. Thank you very much.
Inspire Instructor Podcast, where the learning never stops.